and I still can't fully believe this happened. But there's a woman, I'm going to call her Sandra, and she lost $340,000. Everything she had. And the thing that gets me every time I think about her story is that she was careful. She was the careful one in her family, the one who read the fine print, the one who had a savings account when nobody else did, the one her sister called when she needed financial advice. And it still happened to her. So before you decide this could never be you, I need you to stay with me. Because that's exactly what Sandra thought too. Sandra is 54. She lives in Columbus, Ohio. Nice house. She's owned it for 11 years, a 3-bedroom colonial with a kitchen window that looks out over a garden she keeps really well. It's a little big for one person, but she never sold it. She always thought it would be filled eventually. You know that feeling? When you buy into a version of your life that hasn't quite arrived yet, but you're still holding space for it. That was Sandra and that house. She'd been divorced for 6 years by the time any of this happened. Her marriage to her ex-husband Greg wasn't some dramatic collapse. No affair, no big blow-up. It just kind of ran out of road. 2 people who'd become really good roommates who occasionally argued about money. The divorce was civil. They still texted on birthdays. She didn't hate him, but she didn't love him either. And if you ask her what she felt when she thought about him during those years after, she'd probably say something like, nothing much, which, when you think about it, is its own kind of sad. She had 2 close friends, Marcy from college and Diane from work. She was close with her sister Ellen, who called every Sunday from Pittsburgh without fail. She had a cat named Oliver, Orange Tabby, absolutely terrible attitude, knocked things off shelves for sport. She liked gardening. She liked true crime podcasts. I know. We'll come back to that. She was good at her job. Managed accounts receivable for a logistics company. Been there 14 years. She was not rich, but she had been smart and patient and disciplined for a very long time. She had a 401k she'd been building since her late 20s. A savings account she added to every month without fail. And by the time this story begins, Sandra had quietly, without making a big deal of it, built up $340,000 on her own, after a divorce, from a salary, not an inheritance. That matters. I want you to hold that. She was also lonely, and she knew it. She wasn't in denial about it, wasn't performing happiness she didn't feel. She'd tried dating apps 3 times since the divorce, and each time it was a collection of dinners that went nowhere. Men who talked about themselves for 2 hours straight, or seemed weirdly threatened by the fact that she owned a home. She'd mostly given up. Not entirely. She hadn't let go of the hope, but she'd stopped expecting anything to actually come of it. That specific kind of loneliness, where the door is still cracked, but you've stopped listening for footsteps. That's where Sandra was when this started. It started, of all places, on LinkedIn. And it didn't even start as something romantic. Marcy, her college friend, had suggested she update her profile because there was a job opening at Marcy's company that might suit her. So Sandra logged in for the first time in probably 2 years, updated a few things, sent Marcy the link, and then did what everyone does when they're procrastinating on something. She just started scrolling. That's when the message came in. And I want to read it to you because the message itself is important. This is what it said. Hi Sandra, I hope you don't mind the message. I came across your profile and noticed we're both connected to James Hartley at Terralogic. I work in international supply chain consulting, and I always like to connect with professionals in related fields. No agenda. Just building my network. Hope you're having a great week. Daniel Whitmore. Okay, so read that again. It's not flirtatious. It's not overly eager. It references a real person. James Hartley, someone Sandra actually knew, vaguely, from a conference a few years back. It's professional. It's humble. It even has that little self-deprecating note. No agenda, just building my network, which somehow makes it feel more trustworthy, not less. It gives her a reason to respond without any pressure to do so. She connected with him, sent a brief professional reply, went back to the report she was avoiding. She didn't think about Daniel Whitmore again for 3 days. His second message asked about her work, not in a generic way. A specific question about logistics and supply chain that showed he'd actually read her profile. She answered. He replied thoughtfully. They went back and forth a few times over the course of a week, completely professionally, and Sandra found herself enjoying it. Just enjoying a conversation with someone who seemed genuinely interested in what she had to say. That's a small thing. It shouldn't be a rare thing, but for Sandra at that point in her life, it was. His profile looked impressive, not flashy. That's important, not covered in luxury signaling or humble brags. Understated, credible. He had a profile photo, silver-haired, strong jaw, the kind of guy who looks like he might sail on weekends but doesn't need to tell anyone about it. His work history showed 20-plus years in international trade consulting, based in London, frequent travel to Singapore, Hong Kong, the States. He had a daughter studying architecture in Edinburgh. And he was a widower. His wife had died of cancer 4 years earlier. But here's how he mentioned it, and this is the part I keep coming back to. He didn't make it a bid for sympathy. He didn't linger on it. He mentioned it the way you mention something that's just true about your life. Like, I lost my wife a few years ago. It reshaped how I think about time. Anyway, enough about me. How long have you been in Columbus? He turned it back to her. He always turned it back to her. Within 2 weeks, they'd moved from LinkedIn messages to email. Within 3 weeks, they were texting. And by this point, the conversation was personal. Not romantic exactly. Not yet. But warm. Real. He remembered things she mentioned in passing. She told him once she was stressed about a quarterly review at work, and 3 days later he asked how it went. She mentioned her cat, Oliver, being a little under the weather. Just a throwaway line, barely worth mentioning. And 2 days later he followed up, asked for a photo. She sent him a picture of Oliver, looking deeply unimpressed with everything. He wrote back, "He looks like he absolutely runs that house, and you're just the help." And Sandra laughed. Alone in her kitchen, 9 o'clock on a Wednesday night, actually laughed. Now, I need to stop here for a second. Because Sandra, at this point, had not had a video call with Daniel, had not heard his voice. She had a profile photo and words on a screen. That's it. And she hadn't noticed that. Not because she was careless, because when the conversation is good enough, when someone is making you feel seen and interesting and worth paying attention to, you don't think to ask what's missing. You're too focused on what's there. That's not stupidity. That's being human. Week 5. They'd been talking almost every day, and Daniel said something that Sandra wasn't entirely sure how to take at first. He said he'd been looking forward to her messages in a way he hadn't expected, that he found himself going through his day and wanting to tell her things, that he didn't know exactly what that meant, given that they hadn't met in person, but he thought honesty was important, and he didn't want to be the kind of man who felt something and just said nothing. Sandra stared at her phone for a long time. Then she wrote back, "I know what you mean." And she meant it. That's the thing. She completely meant it. By week 8, she was in love with him. She wouldn't have used that word at the time. But looking back, that's the only honest word for it. She thought about him during the day. She looked forward to his good morning texts, which came every single morning without fail. She told Marcy about him, and Marcy had immediately said, "Sandra, be careful, this sounds like it could be a scam." And Sandra had said, "And this is so important." She said, "Marcy, he's never asked me for anything," which was completely true. 4 months in, 2 of them texting daily, and Daniel Whitmore had never asked Sandra for a single thing. No money, no favor, nothing. Just her time, her thoughts, her stories, her trust. He had asked what she wanted her life to look like in 10 years. He'd asked about her marriage, gently, never pushing. He'd asked what made her happy, what she was proud of, what she regretted. He asked about the house, why 3 bedrooms, what was in the 3rd one. And Sandra told him about the 3rd bedroom, about the loneliness, about the divorce, about the 401k she'd spent 20 years building, about the savings account, about how proud she was of having built real financial security completely on her own. She told him all of it, because she trusted him, because it felt safe. She had just handed him a map to everything she had. She didn't know that yet. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment. In part 2, I'll reveal the shocking tricks this scammer used to manipulate victims and steal such an unbelievable amount of money. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.